Winter's here and the sled is back in the garage. We're gonna be seeing if we can add these flexible mounted handguards to this 2007 Ski-Doo. Now these handguards are made for newer gen sleds, hoping everything fits. We're gonna try it out. Not only are we gonna add these, but we're also gonna add some LED lighting to them from the newer gen sled as well. So we're gonna see how everything looks and how it all comes together. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this project. Now the question is why? I want to make the sled look a little bit newer, and adding some of this lighting can help. I think that lighting really makes a vehicle and really can make it stand out, as you've seen in some of my trucks. My F-150, I like the Morimoto tail lights. On my 69 Mustang, I have Holley headlights, which are extremely bright and look really nice. And then on this sled here, I have a custom-made tail light that I built last year, which I do have an entire video on if you want to go check it out. So I think upgrading the front is next. So in a week or two, we'll do some exploring with LED headlights, see what we can do there, what looks good. But today we're gonna be doing these wind deflectors. So these are the wind deflectors off, I think, a Gen 4 sled. These are the light caps that go onto here. So the theoretical project is gonna be mount these to the sled and then have these caps go on and then find some way to wire everything up and make it work. So let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Let's look at the parts that we got and then start working on the sled. All right, like I was saying, this project consists of a few parts. Essentially, all you need to do is buy these, which are ridiculously expensive, and then buy these, which are also expensive. I'm gonna go ahead and put links down to everything you need in the description below, but you get this, you get the light, and then it comes with this controller here, which looks like it's capable to work on multiple sleds. There are 2 inputs, and then there's 2 outputs for each one of the lights. So let's go ahead and let's look at how these are designed and figure out how to wire this up. Okay, so it looks like everything's pretty straightforward what you get. So like I was saying, you got your 2 handguards, you have this wiring here, and then the clamps to hold it on. So I think one of the first things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see if I can wire these up to make these work, because I wanna make sure that I understand exactly how this circuit is working to put it on the sled. So since these are LEDs, I don't think they're going to be 12 volts, so you can't directly wire them to the battery or to whatever you're gonna be running. You're probably gonna have to use this controller. We're gonna take a measurement of it and we're gonna see how does it actually work. Now, on this, I guess we could look at this. This is probably an output right here since these connect here. So we're gonna have 2. And then we're gonna have 2 inputs here. This looks like it is a connector that's made for different sleds, 1 in, 1 out. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna try connecting up power to this one here, and we're gonna see, does it turn on? And one of the things that I am gonna use is this little oscilloscope here, just to check everything. The reason why I'm using this is because I wanna understand if it's actually putting out a pulse signal or just a straight voltage signal. All right, so since my sled is a rev, I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut the connector off, mainly because I know that this is not gonna work in my application because I do not have something to plug this into. Then with those in place and these here, I'm gonna connect yellow to this red one here. Then this black one that's covered in oil to this one. All right, so we are getting a signal now. And what you can see on this is you're seeing that I'm getting 7.8 volts when I have 12 volts in. And I bet as I drop this down to below 12 volts, let's do voltage, let's go to 10 volts. You still see 7.8, which means it's controlling it there. Okay, so looking at this, you can clearly see that it's 8 volts coming out. So there's somewhere between 7 and 8 volts. And that doesn't change really with the amount of voltage that you're putting in. So you can see up with this, it is just a DC line up there. And since it is just a DC line, it's not pulsing it. So I just need to provide 7.8 volts to these. And it looks like as long as I'm putting 12 volts on the input here, this will work. So this wire really isn't needed. So I'm probably gonna cut this off. This wire, I'm just gonna use for power. So now that we have this working, I should be able to just plug these in and they should just turn on. Nope, we got some lights. There we go. Okay, so these things look awesome. And that's part of the reason why I want to put them on my sled is just looking at them, how bright they are, how good they look, I think they're gonna look really good on the sled. So now that we know how everything works, how everything has to be wired up, we just need to find a 12-volt supply in the sled, which should not be hard to do, and then we can just run them. One of the first things that we need to do with the sled is, these are not gonna fit with this high windshield on it. So this windshield needs to come off and be replaced with something lower. This is kind of like an old man windshield, which I do really like, just having one of these. It keeps me nice and warm, mainly because I do trail riding. So these will definitely probably give me some warmth on the hands, which is really where it matters, at least for myself. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull all this off. All right, and now we have some space to work. In case you're wondering about these, you purchase these and this part just slides right off. There's a little lip in here that they connect to. And then when we put these on, it's gonna do the same thing. It's gonna slide in that hole and into place. But I'm gonna figure out how the wiring goes through it too. Okay, so with this off, I think the way to put this on is there's gonna be a small gap there. So that's where I'm probably gonna run the wire from. So through here, through that small gap on the bottom, and then through this small channel here. So we're gonna see how well that works. So then I should be able to take the screw, which is also a Torx, and then screw it in. And then we have a handguard with a light. And then look at this. This cover that's supposed to go on top of this has these little clips in here, which look like they're to guide the wire straight through. So it's almost like it was made for it. These little screws probably should be replaced at some point with something else. They don't feel long enough, or it's just not holding it in place enough. Then with that in place, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this one bolt here with my Torx, which actually looks smaller than the T25 I'm using, so we'll check that out. So one thing I'm gonna recommend is make sure you put this all together before you start bolting it down, because if you don't do that, it's gonna be hard to work on. So now that I have the lights on and everything's good, you can go ahead and bolt it down to the sled. It is a tight fit, but it looks like everything is going to bolt on fine, and there's plenty of room. So not real much to worry about. Now the installation of these is probably gonna be relatively simple, just looking at it, as long as they fit the handlebars. The mechanism on these is a simple clamping mechanism with just some thread lock screws that you put on. So the screw is actually a T25, and it does have thread lock on it, which is good. These are pretty far spaced forward, so that's something that I wasn't expecting, but okay, works. All right, gonna position this where I want it, and just go ahead and tighten it down. You can always move these later. I'm not gonna fully tighten these just in case I wanna adjust them later. Yeah, looks pretty good so far. All right, so I guess that answers the question of, do they fit? They do need to be better lined up. I haven't tightened them fully down yet, but I gotta figure out what's the right position for them, where do I want them? That is probably pretty close, but they do look good. Now I gotta run the wiring, and we gotta figure out where we're gonna put that. I ended up removing the GPS off the sled because the GPS screen is actually cracked, unfortunately. I think it was just sitting in there over winter, and I put a lot of weight on it, and it is now broken. So with this, looks so far so good. Need to run the wiring, and I'm going to be powering it off of this here, which I believe is a switched 12-volt source. And this should be right under here. Now I think to work on this and to get a little bit more room, I'm going to remove the air box, and it'll give you better visuals into exactly what I'm doing in here. Okay, so I made the modifications to this. I ended up essentially cutting the other one of these off and just putting two connectors here, which I'm just gonna connect right in. Now I did end up removing this right here, which is just the cigarette lighter, the 12-volt adapter for the sled. And I'm gonna power it off of that. So that's only on when the sled is running. Now, to do this, I have a positive here, a negative here. I'm just gonna connect and splice into these. If I really need to, I can just run these connectors here on them and if I need to, that'll work. But any way you want to wire it up, you pretty much can. So I do have the ride light running off of this right now, and because of that, I need to also splice that in. So need to figure out how I'm going to do this, but should be pretty easy just to splice into what goes into this here. Okay, so here's how I like to do it. You can see I made 2 pigtails here, one here, one here. This is going to go to the bottom of the connector, which is here, and then it's going to go back to a source, which is going to feed it, and then this end is going to go to here and feed this. And same thing on the negative side here, and then both of them are going to connect into these 2 here, so everything remains powered. So going to go ahead and quickly plug everything in, see if it powers up. All right, so here we go. Everything's hooked back up. The air box is back in. I don't have the windshield yet. I said in the video earlier that I need to get a new windshield that fits this because the one that I have there won't clear this, but let's go ahead and start and see what it looks like. Looks like these work and everything worked out as it should. So it really wasn't that bad of an install. You know, even though these parts are made for a later sled, everything still worked as it's supposed to. You did have to cut off the wires and wire it up so that you're on a switch 12-volt source, which on this was pretty easy to find. Now, with this, I do have some other snowmobile videos coming up that are probably going to be launched midweek over the next few weeks. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and if you want, go check out how I made the custom rear snowmobile tail light for my Rev. So thanks for tuning in this week's Smackey's Garage. I'll see you next time.